We have a very informative presentation tonight, a lot of great information. Just for some housekeeping rules, if you need to take a phone call, which I need to turn my phone off now, but if you need to take a phone call, please step out in the hallways and take your phone. If you need to talk, discuss something with somebody, please step out to the hallways because sometimes it's hard for people to hear in the very back. And also, if you have this is a citywide meeting. All of you are volunteers from your divisions. It's great to have you. We have a lot of people that's also signing on to the live stream. Actually from other police departments throughout the nation, but we're having a lot of the PIP members that have families and they're at home, so welcome everybody at home. We have a lot of people. And also, just recently, myself and Chief Finner had sat down with a few members of the Greater Houston Loss Prevention Alliance. The chief and myself, many years ago, we created this alliance to better work with business owners of major stores, major shopping centers. And we work hand in hand with them to have campaigns. We talk about some of the crime issues on their properties to work things out. This November, every year, we try to have the Safe Shopping Starts With You campaign to remind everybody about when you're out shopping, some current trends to actually prevent from being a victim of crime. So that's going to be hitting the news here pretty soon, and we look forward to it. Again, also, if you have a divisional crime issue, please get with me or somebody after the meeting, and we can talk about your specific issue in your neighborhood. We will get it addressed. If you have a question, we'll have an answer for you within 24 hours. But we have so much great information and about an hour to actually go through, so we have a limited amount of time. So no talking and back. If you do, Judge Judy, you got to deal with her later. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our citywide chairperson, Joan Bouchard. You got the floor.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to see everybody here. And before we get started with our official meeting, I would like to just remind everyone, Sunday, September 11th was known as Patriots' Day. I hope all of you took time to remember those who lost their lives on 9/11, as we know it, and their families. And a reminder, we must never forget. Thank you. Now we have the official part. Welcome to the in-person and live stream Chief Citywide PIP meeting. We would like to thank all of you from citywide and divisional PIP team members attending this evening and those who logged on live streaming from your communities. Your teamwork and participation within the PIP program reflects leadership by being involved in your communities. At these PIP meetings, our goal is to provide the attending members all the information that we can, which you then must take back under penalty of I don't know, we'll figure one out, and go back to your communities and make sure that they get this information that you receive. And as some of the nation's police departments have been the focus in the news recently, community PIP team members, like yourselves, promote a positive relationship with every group in the community. It is you and your community, and you must take the credit for the success of this program. We will start with Chaplain Sergeant Vince Johnson with the invocation.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together as a police department, as a community, as one city. We ask that you continue to keep the police officers and first responders safe, and we ask that you continue to keep your loving arms around each and every citizen of this city. Lord, we thank you for allowing us to come together as one, to share ideas, to collaborate, all with one mission and one goal, to keep Houston safe. So we thank you, Master, for this great opportunity. We also ask that you bless the meal that we are receiving and let it be nourishment for our bodies. This is your servant's prayer. In your son's precious name we pray. Amen.
I would like everyone to know that it's a little warm in here, and we don't know why it is, but I'm sure eventually by the time we leave, we might figure out how to work the controls somewhere. Okay. Communities have discovered this program across the U.S., and a lot of the police departments in these different cities have contacted us, and they wanted to know how we made this successful, which we did, and we must continue to do this very successfully. The model that we pass along to the other cities is really very worthwhile. You two I'm going to throw out. Cut it out. Just a few quick announcements first before we'd like to bring up Sergeant Tracy Hicks from HPD's Auto Theft Division for a brief announcement, and I think he also has a little bit of a video. So, if you would, where are you?
Hello, everybody. Everybody knows me. Normally, I'm the Cadillac converter guy. Today, I'm the Stop Leaving Guns in the Cars guy. 3,700 guns stolen last year. We're going to hit 5,000 this year. We've got to do better. Funny story before I show you this video. I had to find different people that spoke different languages. We only have one female in the police department that speaks Mandarin. So I called her. I said, hey, I need you for a video about leaving guns in cars. She says, is this a joke? I said, why would you think it's a joke? She goes, my gun was stolen out of my car last week, and she thought I was from Internal Affairs pulling a prank on her. I'm like, you know what? I'm glad you're in the video. It's your punishment for actually doing that. And, Chief, one of my classmates, I found out last week, 2 guns in his car, a lieutenant. You'll get his, you probably know who I'm talking about. One of my own classmates lost 2 guns Friday in his city car. And I told him I was going to send him this video, and be gentle. He's a nice guy. So us as officers, we need to do better. But this number, cats are cats. They're going to be stolen. Guns, it's ridiculous. It should be 0. There's not one excuse ever to ever leave an unsecured gun in your car. Look, it's gun safes. I mean, they're cheap. They're $300. You lock it in your car, if you need to leave it in there real quick, okay? Here's a video I made. This actually came out about a couple months ago, but because of COVID, we couldn't premiere it, and you'll see why we had to show it here, because you might see a famous person in the video.
Cars. We had over 3,700 guns stolen out of cars last year. The numbers are still going up. Not listening to me, maybe you'll listen to my friends.
El número de armas que se están robando de carros está creciendo. Carrying a gun is your right, but it comes with a great responsibility.
There's James.
永远不要把枪留在车里。
Our Instagram, he got the most hits. James, you gonna play it again? All right, James wants to. He's the one to play.
You have to stop leaving guns in your cars. We had over 3,700 guns stolen out of cars last year. The numbers are still going up. You're not listening to me, maybe you'll listen to my friends.
El número de armas que se están robando de carros está creciendo. Carrying a gun is your right, but it comes with a great responsibility.
I told him, I said, do not release a dog. So his partner's got a squeaky toy right behind my head, and I'm down. I'm like, he's trying to get the squeaky toy that's right here. So that's my words for tonight. Stop leaving guns in cars, okay? Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mike Weingart. He will speak on the Houston Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association.
Hi, everybody. Chief, Chiefs. Oh, this one. All right.
That one.
Can you all see me? I'm standing up. The Citizens Police Academy, our major project is called Hydrate the Officer. So far this year, we have provided 116 pallets of water to the various divisions. And it's $180 a pallet, and we're running out of money for the water for the officers. So I've got some forms here for your subdivision, your company, personally, and I'll put them back at the table. There's a little, if you want to leave cash, we'll take checks, we'll take Zelle, but there's 1,000 bottles in each skid, and we've done 161,000 bottles of water. Wow. That's 1 million ounces. So your help would be greatly appreciated. Anything from 10 cents for a bottle to 180 for a skid or more. So please help us out so we can keep keeping the officers hydrated. Thank you.
I'd like to make a quick announcement. Sure. Just to prove that people are watching live stream, I just got a text from one of our partners in the Greater Houston Loss Prevention Alliance, and Mike, HEB will donate several cases of water for the cause for the. So I just got a text from somebody who's actually watching this meeting.
We are a dedicated group of citizens, business owners, working together with the very dedicated and sleepy chief and command staff interacting together, and this is to reduce crime. And we would like to thank all for your participation to gain the growth and recognition from other cities and police departments. Next, we have the department's Crime Analysis Division, citywide crime analysis report, and Commander Matthew May.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out this evening. We're going to review some crime stats. A couple of caveats real quick. These are not the official numbers for the Houston Police Department. We've got reports of incidents and not complete investigations. There's about a 1-month lag time before we completely certify everything and we publish it officially. If you need the official crime stats, you can find them on the HPD webpage, and I'll be showing you that web address here in a few moments. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So these are our violent and nonviolent crime categories year to date. As you can see, our nonviolent crime is down, or nonviolent crime is up 10.9%. Our violent crime is down 9.5%. The categories that have gone up are burglary of a building, auto theft, BMV, fraud, and kidnapping. Next, we're looking at the last 28 days compared to the previous 28 days. This gives us an indication of how crime is trending overall, month to month. Violent crime is down 7.6%, and nonviolent crime is up 4.3%. So this map shows us the rate of change of violent crime over the past 30 days compared to the previous 30 days. The areas in blue show where crime is trending down. The areas in red show where crime is trending up. The areas in bright red are where we're running initiatives right now to knock it back down to blue. So looking at crimes that involve firearms, over the last 28 days, we've had 74 incidents involving firearms with 83 victims. 23 of these were homicides, 3 were robberies, 3 involved domestic violence, and 1 was gang-related. And that's our basic review. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
But it's on firearms.
Beg your pardon?
Can you address the question that's on firearms?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you get to a building that says you cannot bring the firearm into the building,
Right.
or you have really little choice but to leave it in your vehicle,
My official suggestion is if you find yourself in that position, possibly go back home, drop your firearm off, and go back to the building. Some government buildings allow firearms in. If it's a private building, they've always got, it's up to their discretion whether to allow you in with firearm or not. But what Sergeant Hicks was talking about is a major problem right now. We're seeing it in a lot of our shopping areas. We'll have, you come up, you leave your gun in the glove box, in the passenger side, but yeah, people who do that, you're just tempting fate. We see a lot of people that've got certain stickers on their cars, and those stickers indicate that you're more likely than not to have, or decals, but you're more likely than not to have some type of firearm in the car. If you have an NRA sticker, hey, if somebody's looking for a car or for a gun, they're going to go into that car. So that'd be another suggestion, is take anything that might indicate that you might have something valuable in your car off the car, any type of sticker or other indicator. Did that answer your question?
Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. Anything else? Yes, ma'am. Or yes, sir.
So if we were to get pulled over and if we had a license for a gun, how can we indicate that we are deaf to the police officer?
That's a great question, and actually, we've been training our officers, all the cadets that have been coming out the last 10 years, and myself and Emmanuel, who has actually been helping out with the classes, we're training all of our officers, whether they're new cadets and are the more experienced officers, to notice the sign. Now, this is a test for everybody. Does everybody, of course, the deaf folks, the members know this. What is a sign for I'm deaf or I'm deaf? Or I'm deaf? Any takers? This is a sign right here. And in most cases, people just point at their ear. So whenever we train our officers, when somebody is not speaking and we're giving them verbal commands, we actually train our officers, and then we'll get an interpreter on the side, or we can write notes back and forth with each other. I hope that answers your question. Okay, John?
Next, we have the chief, right behind me. Okay.
Thank you very much. Hey, I'm gonna move really quickly. Just want to say thank you. I always say value your time. Thank y'all so much for showing up here every time. Chief Bradford, my former chief, and after all those years of putting up what I'm putting up with right now, and I'm only at probably a year and a few months, and you did, I think, 7 years if I remember, still in public service, and here at our PIP every time. I appreciate your friendship and the professional relationship. Joan, thank you very much. And everybody else, and our great men and women in uniform on the front line. Let me briefly just touch on, I know a lot of people concerned about what happened at Heights High School. There was a prank call, and it really stirs up a lot of nerves, a lot of resources. It's not a joke, but thank God nobody was hurt, of course, on a prank call, but it happened in many cities around the nation. The FBI special agent in charge, James Smith, gave me a call. He's in D.C. and he's going to be back here tomorrow, but we already started the investigation around the nation to see if we can get that person or persons responsible, because it's really, really serious. But just glad to know, and a lot of people were really pleased, and I was pleased with the response as well. So thank y'all. One note, please don't forget about National Night Out next month, October the 4th. We want everybody to be involved, a great opportunity to get to know your neighbors and talk about ways that we can prevent crime. and just build our city a little bit better and safer. So just really proud of that. He went over the stats, and I'm not going to go over them again. It's a lot of discussion and disagreement as to what's going on in the city. The stats are the stats, and I'll leave them at that. And we're going to continue to work together with all our partners. Really proud of all law enforcement, but I'm extremely proud of our federal partnerships as well. They're on board with us, going after violent criminals, those individuals who are committing the most crime, violent crime in our city, and we'll continue to do that. So just moving forward, I don't want to stand in front of Chief Martin. Is going to come and talk about ShotSpotter. It's a great, if y'all hadn't heard the presentation before, it is a great technology tool that really helps us with shootings. So I'm going to get out the way. I'll be here for a little bit. And if once we get through and we'll ask a few questions, I think, Joan, I want to wait until the end or for questions. Yeah, let's go ahead and entertain a few. Because I am sleepy. She did bring it up. She called me yawning. She don't miss anything. Is everybody good? And any questions? That means y'all all happy and y'all love us, so I'll take it, okay? All right. But I'll be here for a little bit. Thank you for the support.
Do we have any new people, first time attending? Almost, oh my. Okay. Just stand up very quickly and then back down again. Okay. There we go. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you for coming. How did you find out about the program?
We are all in the same building. Main Street, having a lot of violent crime issues, so we're all here for the
Okay.
same building and businesses.
316?
3622 Main Street.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, our presentation, and this is with Chief Martin. It's an important presentation because it's going to educate all of us about how gunshot detection technology is helping the Houston Police Department combat violent criminal activity in the city of Houston. And it's called HPDs, and I'm going to say this very slowly so we don't mess this up, ShotSpotter, which was up there originally. Okay.
I'm going to show them a video first.
Oh, okay. There you go.
All right. I'm going to show you a real quick video first that's going to kind of introduce what we're talking about. Then I'm going to go through some slides, and then any questions you have, I'll be able to answer them at the end. Okay, go ahead and switch it over and have Matt play. Oh, it went away, Matt.
A gun was fired somewhere in your city. So what happens now? In the past, there was a shooting would be reported to police at all. Even when it was, it took precious time, and there was often confusion regarding the location of the shooting and other pertinent information. At least that's how things were. ShotSpotter has changed all that. By utilizing advanced technology honed over 2 decades, we have automated the process. We monitor gunfire activity 24/7. So if a gun is fired in any area within ShotSpotter coverage, the system detects, locates, and immediately alerts police of the gunshot. So how does it work? It starts with acoustic sensors that are placed on buildings and lampposts throughout a neighborhood. If a gun is fired anywhere in the area, multiple sensors detect and timestamp the sound. The precise location of the gunshot is determined based on the amount of time it takes for the sound of the gunshot to travel to each individual sensor, effectively triangulating the sound. The exact location of the detected gunshot is indicated by a dot on a map. Once an alert is generated, it is immediately sent to our IRC, or Incident Review Center, where trained acoustic experts then analyze each incident in mere seconds, determining if the sound is gunfire.
All right, we'll switch over to slides real quick.
Have a little bit of technical difficulty with the sound. Stand by.
All right.
speak up to the mic.
Well, I'm loud. Hopefully I can overtake the hum that we're dealing with. I'm sorry about the audio issues. It made that video kind of hard to hear. But I'll be going over a lot of anyway to tell you a little bit about what we've got. The company that we have contracted with as a city for what is called gunshot detection technology is a company called ShotSpotter. Largest gunshot detection companies in the nation. And we have a grand total for the of 10 square miles of the city covered by ShotSpotter, as well as 3/4 of a square mile split around some schools that actually Spring Branch ISD has put in place. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I'm going to get into a little bit about how ShotSpotter works and how gunshot detection technology works, and then we'll take questions at the end here. On December 28th of 2020, Houston Police Department actually started a pilot, a 1-year-long pilot program with ShotSpotter. You know, like any other company, they want you to try their product. Well, they definitely wanted us to try it. They let us try it for a year for no cost, and it was very successful. As it was saying in the video, ShotSpotter puts sensors out throughout the area that is covered by the program. They're audio sensors that are constantly listening for a specific type of impulse noise. The computer is analyzing the sound and looking for a specific type of impulse noise that is associated with gunfire. And what happens then, it'll detect it. It actually semi-triangulates the location, and it will send that location back to ShotSpotter's center where they have actual human beings sitting there, auditory experts, and they will listen again to that gunfire clip. It takes a 10-second clip of the gunfire, sent it to that center. They'll listen to it, and if they confirm with the computer that it is indeed gunfire, then they send an alert to the Houston Police Department. And what happens then is our officers will get that information in real time on their city-issued cell phones, on their car computers, and then our dispatch center gets that information at the same time the officers receive it. What we're seeing, the company says that usually takes less than a minute. In reality, it's mostly taking anywhere from 35 to 45 seconds. So our officers are being notified of instances of gunfire in these 10 square miles where we've contracted with this within 35 to 45 seconds of that incident occurring. So given that normally if you call the police, it takes you time to hear the gunfire, go find your phone, dial the number, dispatcher has to answer, they take your information, they get the call put in, and then they send it to us. This gets to our officers in 30 to 45 seconds. What we would normally have gotten in the event of a shooting in progress call, even if you saw somebody being shot, was 2 minutes or so from the time you start that call until that officer is made aware. So in 35 to 45 seconds, they become aware of an instance of gunfire in this area. This map shows you where the two coverages are. I'm going to get off of it really quickly because if you've ever seen the movie Fight Club, the first rule of ShotSpotter is we don't talk about exactly where ShotSpotter is, okay? It's just something that we don't necessarily want everybody out there to know exactly where it's located. There is an area on the southeast side of town, as you saw up there, and there's an area on the north side of town, as you saw up there, but we do not like to publish exactly where that location is because we don't necessarily want people knowing exactly where not to go and shoot your guns. We want to be able to hopefully apprehend those individuals. All right, we'll talk a little bit about the Southeast Zone, which was the first area that we had under pilot. So far during this program, a grand total for the entirety of the city, or for just for the, actually, let me make sure this is, just for the Southeast Zone, they have detected over 12,000 instances of gunfire in a little bit over a year, not quite 2 years. Okay, a year and nearly 9 months now. Okay, 12,000 instances of gunfire. That equates to 45,000 rounds of ammunition. Any of you that own guns and have bought ammunition lately know that what we've tried to get out there and tell these people is, don't you know how expensive that is? You need to cut it out. But we don't like any of this. But what this has given us is an accurate picture of gunfire in these areas that this system is in place. What we're finding out is that 85 to 90% of the time when there is an instance of gunfire, the residents in that area do not call the police. That was very concerning. I was the commander of Southeast when we implemented this program, and it was very concerning for me to know that 85% of the time residents that lived in my area would hear gunshots and they would not call the police. You know, as a police officer, I'm thinking, man, you hear gunfire, that's an immediate call to 911. Hey, somebody's shooting out here. But we went, exactly that. We went and talked to community groups. We talked to people in the area and asked them, what's going on? What would be a reason you wouldn't call the police? And it's exactly that. I'm afraid. I'm hiding in my bathtub. I'm not thinking about the phone. Or, there's nothing y'all can do about it anyway. I call the police. Sometimes I don't see them. They don't come out. Or if they come out, there's nothing they can do. Or they just had become so numb to the gunfire that it didn't really resonate with them enough to want to pick up the phone and call the police. So that was a little disheartening for me as a police commander to think, you know, residents in my area so numb to gunfire that they just don't pick up the phone and call. So we were able to go out and talk to people about this system, tell them what it could do, tell them what was going on, talk to them about the difference in the way we respond to these instances versus what we would get when we had a call about gunfire before. Before, you call the police, and usually the call would drop as what we call a discharging firearms unknown location. Because you didn't actually see it happen oftentimes. You heard the gunfire. You didn't know exactly where it is. There's gunfire in my neighborhood. There's gunfire a block away from my house or a couple blocks away from my house. So the officers are coming out there, and they're looking, and they're listening. They usually would assume quite often that the resident doesn't necessarily want that big old marked patrol car pulling up in front of their house going, look, this person called the police, especially when you're talking about people shooting. Drive through the area, and if they don't hear anything, they don't see anything, they're going to clear that call and they're going to move on. Well, what ShotSpotter gives us, our contract with this company, is that they will provide the information, usually within a minute, and they guarantee that they will detect 90% of outdoor gunfire in the area that is covered. They guarantee that 90% of the time what they send to us will definitely be gunfire and not any other type of sound. And they guarantee that with 90% accuracy, the gunfire will occur within a 25-meter radius circle that they provide to us. That circle has a dot in the middle of it, but it's got a 25-meter radius around it, 82 feet around it. And they guarantee with 90% certainty that the gunfire happened inside that circle. So that gives our officers a lot more detail, a lot more accurate information to go on when they're responding to this incident. They can go directly to that location. And what we've trained them to do is, once they get there and make sure everything is safe, they're going to get their phone out, and they got an app on their phone that will show them that dot. And those officers will go to that dot, and they will look and see what's there and see what they can find as far as evidence, victims of a crime, suspects, whatever else is going on. It's a much more accurate, much more rapid process than we had before. All right. Of those 12,000 times they detected gunfire, 12 times the audio expert at the system listened to it and said, nope, that's not gunfire, that's something else. And they dismissed those alerts. 7,800 of those are what they call suppressed alerts, which means they actually happened outside of the area that we contract and pay for. They actually give us a little buffer zone. They give us an extra 200-300 yards outside the area that we've contracted for. But the reason they don't publish these alerts to the police department is because they can't guarantee their accuracy, because they're getting farther and farther away from their sensors. So they can't guarantee exactly where they are. But they do make this all available to us in an analytical program that our officers can use to evaluate where instances of gunfire are happening in the area. So we still use this as good evidence of where violent incidents and gunfire are happening in the areas where we are. But 4,555 times, they have notified the police department of an instance of gunfire. They have published an alert to us during that time period, okay? We run these, that's a lot of work. We run these as a shooting in progress. Because if you think about it, somebody calls me and says, I got a shooting in progress, somebody's being shot out here. They see somebody running, they hear gunfire, whatever it is. That whole process I was telling you about before is going to have to happen. But we don't always know exactly what's up. We're dealing with somebody's eyes, somebody's ears, and what they saw. This is telling us that with a 90% certainty, there's a gun being shot in this little circle right here, right now, or 35 seconds ago. So we run those as a high priority shooting in progress call. What we found within the first couple of days of having this pilot active is that officers would pull up and there's a suspect standing in the middle of the road with a gun looking at us with a deer in the headlights, look like, where the heck did you come from? Because they had no concept of us responding that quickly. Because before, in 35 seconds, we wouldn't have even known about the gunfire yet, because the call would barely have even been made. So that, just the speed alone in our response has been a significant boost. It's a little bit of a breakdown about what happened with these alerts. 929 offense reports have been generated off of these alerts. It's about 20% of the time when we get the gunfire, we get out there and find something that results in an offense report. The other time, you think about it, not every gun leaves evidence. Revolvers, other kinds of guns don't leave evidence. Sometimes there's just nothing that the officers are able to find when they respond. One beat out in Southeast had the most in the coverage area. We had 82 arrests so far, including one for homicide. We've had 102 different charges filed because of these. And we've actually come up on 50 different gunshot victims. 17 of the times it was a murder. And I'm going to tell you about a couple of incidents here in a minute. We also had situations where we would get there and we would find a gunshot victim. The police have not yet been called, and that victim is bleeding and in need of serious, immediate medical attention. And we were able to provide them with tourniquets and other type of immediate emergency medical care to stabilize them until the fire department could get there and transport them to the hospital. And on at least 3 different occasions, just within the first year, it is firmly believed that that person would have passed away had it not been for the officer responding as quickly as they did. So it's not just catching bad guys, it's getting there to find the victims in a timely manner and to get them the medical care that they need. Just a breakdown of the types of situations with the evidence that gets recovered. One of the things we do have, it's one of our federal partnerships that the chief talked about, is a system called NIBIN. It's National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. And what happens is it's like a fingerprint for a gun. You take a shell casing from a gun, you enter in the system, and it acts as a fingerprint for that gun. If that gun is then used in another crime and we're able to recover evidence, such as another shell casing, we can link those crimes together. So this system has allowed us to collect a significant amount of additional gunshot evidence to put into the NIBIN system to link these crimes together. Okay, one of the questions my officers had when we first implemented this system was, oh man, it's just going to be a lot more work for me. Whole bunch more calls. I'm going to be running out there running these emergency calls all the time. It's just going to be such a tax and a drain on my time. Okay, so we evaluated calls to look at the area where ShotSpotter is versus what it was before we implemented the system. So you remember me saying that we started at the very end of 2020, literally December 28th of 2020. We started the ShotSpotter program, and we ran it all the way through 2021 as a pilot. Well, if you look at the calls for service up here, those are the 2 areas just in general in Southeast where some of this is. In 2020, prior to the system, there were 52,000 calls for service in that area. In 2021, in the same area, there were only 49,000 calls for service. Now, it doesn't seem like a huge difference, but you got to figure we had 4,000 or so ShotSpotter alerts. All those are calls for service. So we added several thousand calls for service for gunfire, but the overall calls for service in that area went down. What that gets into is all the studies that have been done in the past about targeted enforcement. If you put a police officer on every instance of gunfire in that area in a rapid manner, it has an impact on crime and disorder in that area. So that was a benefit that we weren't sure we would see, but we did. And I actually looked at that specifically because I had officers just concerned that they were going to be running extra calls and not necessarily seeing the benefit. Talking about some of those success stories where we were able to get there and provide life-saving first aid to people on these scenes. At first one, very early in the system, or actually halfway through 21 on July 3rd, officers were dispatched to a ShotSpotter alert and arrived to find that the complainant had been shot after an argument. The suspect had fired multiple shots at the complainant, striking him several times. Officers were able to render aid and apply a tourniquet to the complainant's leg. He was then transported to the hospital where he survived, and the suspect was subsequently arrested. Later in the year, December 11th, 2021, officers dispatched to a ShotSpotter call. They arrived to find that the victim was sitting in his car and had been shot in the leg. Officers again got the male out of his car, rendered first aid, applied a tourniquet, and were able to get him to the hospital where he survived. And on January 15, 2022, officers dispatched to a ShotSpotter call at 4346 Mallow. They arrived to find the suspect down in the roadway. The suspect himself had been shot. They provided him first aid and were advised that 2 other people were inside the residence that the suspect had attacked. Both of them were transported to the hospital and the suspect, and a second suspect had fled the scene. Unfortunately, one of the victims in this incident did succumb to their wounds, but the suspect who we originally arrested and the other victim, the first aid that was provided to them assisted in them surviving this incident. So, the second place we put ShotSpotter up on the north side of town. Again, first rule of ShotSpotter, we don't talk about where it is, so I don't have any maps here. This has only been active just since June, towards the end of June of this year. So just in the month that it was active so far, they have already had 300 alerts with over 1,600 rounds fired. 249 of those alerts were suppressed. It's outside the area like I was talking about. And 51 of those alerts had been published in that first month of operation. So their volume had not been quite as high as we'd seen in the other one, but we're still seeing a benefit for residents in that neighborhood when it comes to responding to gunfire. And that is it for the Death by PowerPoint presentation. One thing I was going to show you, this is actually what officers see and get on their computers. I'm going to play this, and hopefully it doesn't just create feedback, and you tell me if you can hear it. Officers actually get the audio recording of the gunfire on their devices. So not only can they see the circle with the dot, tells them how many rounds were fired, but they can also listen to the audio file and determine that ShotSpotter will actually tell them important tactical information, such as it's a high-capacity firearm. There may be more than one shooter. They've even had instances where it's recorded a fully automatic firearm, firing just as fast as you hold that trigger down. So all that information is conveyed to the officer as they're responding, so they are able to respond in a sound and safe manner, be safe, be tactically correct, and be able to handle that scene safely without any incident. So that is it for the official presentation. I will now take any questions anybody has. Yes, ma'am.
How do you discern, for example, like New Year first, January 1st, and 4th of July? It's so much going on. How could the ShotSpotter discern? They're actually gunshots, but as well as fireworks. I just wondered about that. And then, how soon will the permanent contract go into effect for ShotSpotter?
Okay. All right, just to repeat the question, she asked, first off, what happens on New Year's and 4th of July? I need to start putting that in my presentation because that's the first question I get every time. And secondly, she asked, when will the permanent contract go into effect? 4th of July and New Year's Eve are literally the only 2 days out of the 365-day year that ShotSpotter will not guarantee accuracy. They tell you up front, those 2 days, we just can't do it. Matter of fact, New Year's Eve, when it gets real bad right at midnight, and most of the day on 4th of July, they go into what's called suppression mode. They don't turn off, but what they do is they tell their computer to be very aggressive in filtering out instances that may not be gunfire. So you will still get alerts during those time periods, but they will be things that the computer designated as guaranteed to be gunfire. So they're very, very cautious in what they send. And the reason being is their system would be overwhelmed, because you're talking about a real person sitting there having to listen to every one of these. And if they tried to do just the thousands that would happen in Houston with fireworks and everything else to make that distinction, they would be unable to do it. And as for the permanent contract, it is actually in effect. We had a trial period for 5 square miles in the southeast part of town, and at the end of that trial, City Council, and thank you very much to them, saw the benefit of this and went ahead and expanded the program and added a 5 square mile area on the north side of town, and went ahead and contracted to keep the location we already had on the southeast side of town. And then very recently, Spring Branch Independent School District has chosen 3 high schools that are located close to apartment complex where there's significant instances of gunfire. And they have put ShotSpotter in a quarter-mile area around those high schools. And then they have provided those alerts to us as Houston Police Department. They respond to the school to determine if there's need for a lockdown, but the actual ShotSpotter alert, such as what we were talking about here, goes to the Houston Police Department, and we're able to respond to those apartment complexes and provide that benefit to those residents as well. No other question, way in the back first. Why doesn't it work on the west side of town? Right now, we don't have a contract in an area on the west side of town. I will tell you this, it is not necessarily inexpensive technology. So it was put out in areas very specifically targeted by the activity in the area. The only information we used to determine where we put this was instances of gunfire, calls for service relating to gunfire, and gun crime. No other information was used. So if it's an area where there is not a high instance of reports of gunfire, not a high instances of gun crime, then we did not look at those areas. The areas where we put it, we made sure that we were data driven on it. We only looked at how many reports are there of gunfire, how many instances are there of gun crime in this area. That's the only data we use to determine where to deploy this system. Harris County does have the system. I think up in the Aldine area, outside of the incorporated limits of Houston, Harris County does have some ShotSpotter. I actually forgot to mention them. But we don't directly get Harris County's alerts since they are outside the limits of the city of Houston. Sir, I think you were waiting.
That was my question. Do you ever see it being citywide or only areas you deem to be driven by staff?
Let's put it this way. A lot of people want it. I know that at least one other council member is looking at using their own council discretionary funds to put at least 1 square mile of it in their area. That's a cost in and of itself, but she's looking at doing that for the residents in her district. And we've already provided, or actually have sitting on my computer that I need to provide to her, an analysis of where the gun crime is happening in her district so she can make a reasonable determination as to where to place that system should she decide to go forward with that.
Is it kind of like cell phones? The more cell phones you have, the cheaper they became. So if you did the system bigger, would it give you a discount?
They're not going to give us too big a discount because the company themselves puts the sensors out there. And if you look at that 5 square mile area up in down in southeast, there's over 100 sensors in that 5 square miles that the company deploys as part of the contract. We don't pay them per sensor, we pay them per square mile. But per square mile, it's not inexpensive. So the city's contracted for 3 years in both of these 2 locations, and we've been seeing the good benefits, so I don't see any reason why they won't continue. And I know the mayor and I know several council members would like to see it expanded to other parts of town. I don't know if it will ever truly be citywide. I think because of cost, to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, we're always going to target it where there is gun crime. Because if you have an area where there's never a call regarding gunfire and never a crime involving a firearm, you're paying a lot of money to put sensors in an area where you're not going to get very many alerts. So the goal is to put it in areas where the residents are having to live in fear necessarily because of gunfire, and to provide them with benefit.
So the cost is on the actual physical sensors. Do you ever see it being worked by satellite?
That I don't know. That's beyond my technical expertise. You'd probably have to ask one of their executives whether they ever thought they could do that. But since it's listening, I know we've got some pretty powerful satellites, but I don't know if one of them can listen to me right now at this microphone. But right now it is literally just a microphone with a computer. Well, yeah, that thing can listen to me. I know Facebook's always sending me ads for stuff I didn't ask for. So, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about the development of this program, the people that developed it, what's their background, were they military, law enforcement, ballistic experts, and where else is it used in the country?
Okay, who developed it, I'd have to do more research. It is used in well over 160 major cities across the country, including Chicago. They use it significantly in New York. Matter of fact, NYPD, of course, NYPD, because of major terrorist events that we just talked about here, typically gets a lot more funding. They have it in almost the entirety of the island in Manhattan. Of course, you also are covered by cameras almost anywhere you go in the island of Manhattan too. So they have it there. So New York, Chicago, other major cities are using it. They were using it before we were. We had actually evaluated it a long time ago, and unfortunately at the time the cost was very prohibitive, and we were not able to activate it. Very recently, back towards the end of Chief Acevedo's time here, ShotSpotter approached us and offered to provide us with a pilot program. And we took advantage of that, and we saw very good success and went ahead and went forward with a contract. Yes, sir, Commander Wynn.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer those questions. You can go to ShotSpotter.com. They have all the information.
Oh, yeah, they do. Yeah. And they've used it in the military as well. They've used it overseas. They've deployed it in areas where they're trying to determine and get rapid alerts to where there's gunfire instances in areas where our military is deployed as well.
So my second comment is that, like Chief said, the street crime rate nicely report to ShotSpotter for us in Northwest, and we have very good successful. But I think another benefit that we have is that it identifies the specific location that have frequent gunfire, and that way we can work with the business owner or even the city to make sure to mitigate the problem. So it has another benefit of that.
Good stuff.
2 more minutes.
Okay, 2 more minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Is that one on the east side? Because I have an app on my phone called Citizen, and it alerts me of what's going on. And lots of times gunshots, and it's too close for comfort, like within a mile, half a mile.
This system is actually not in the far east parts of the city. It's in the southeast section, and then it's also on the north section, north of 610. Those are where our 2 5-square-mile areas are. There are some of these apps use some other systems. They use citizen calls. Kind of like if you have Waze on your phone for maps, and you got people saying, it's a speed trap ahead. It's because people let you know. And that's what happens. People let the app system know about instances of gunfire. So, okay. One more question.
There's other companies that have this technology and try to sell it to a lot of corporations. And I didn't know if ShotSpotter is only for law enforcement, or if they also do corporations, and if so, does it feed into the HPD system if we had it installed in our building?
I don't know specifically how they do with corporations. I know they were willing to contract with Spring Branch Independent School District. So it's not just police departments. That school district was able to contract. It is for outdoor. So if it's inside a building, it's not really that effective because the gunshot's muffled. So they don't necessarily do deployments inside structures. But if you had a large corporate campus or a corporate location that was located within an area maybe where there was high crime, where they could deploy it in and around your building, I could see that being a possibility. But since these sensors have to be placed in different places, like sometimes they're on light poles, sometimes they're on businesses, sometimes they're on city buildings, different places like that, the limitation would be whether they could get the agreement to put the sensors up where they needed to put them. So, and then as far as providing the information to law enforcement, what we did with Spring Branch is they just provided us with what's called a user level agreement. Is Spring Branch, they print out a form, hey, Spring Branch is paying for this, but the Houston Police Department is going to get the alerts, and then we agree to accept and respond to the alerts, and that's all it took. So, certainly. All right, and I'll be here if anybody thinks of any other questions. I'll be here in the back when we're done.
We just have a couple of announcements. Could we large applause to refreshments? Northwest, Clear Lake, Southeast, and Hobby Airport divisions provided the food today. On November 8th, we will have our holiday meeting. And also note that that is Election Day. Please go vote. Take a friend with you. And on behalf of the Citywide Board, before we close, and the divisional PIP officers, and the entire command staff, we would like to thank you all, PIP members who have been involved in your neighborhoods. The program works. It's called Crime Prevention, so I think we're on the good track here. Before we do our motto, which we close with every time, the Houston Police do care for us and about all of us. Above all, protecting all of us. So, if you have the time, you get involved. If you don't have the time, you should make the time. It's your neighborhood and it's your city, don't forget. So let's try to keep it really safe if we can. And thank you all for coming, and please go home and drive safely. Thank you for being here.